Hi class, in today's video we're going to be talking about section 7.4, percents. And so percent comes from the Latin percentum. Right there's that word percent. But per is per or for or of, centum is 100. So percent is the same as per 100, right? And so that word centum is where we get our root for things like century, which is 100 years, or cents, which is 100 of a dollar. And so n% is by definition n over 100. And we'll always talk about n being positive. So percents, like decimals, are just special fractions. We have n pieces that are 1/100th of the whole. So we have n pieces of 1/100th of the whole. And so, just like we talked about our concept of fractions, we can think about using math drawings to think about percents. And so here it says for each of the diagrams 1 through 5, determine the percent of the diagram that's shaded and explain your reasoning. And it says to write your fraction as simplest form and then convert that to a decimal. And so I won't work through all of these, but suppose here we have our first image where it looks like it's cut into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal pieces. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4/5. And then we have 1/2 of a fifth and 1/4 of a fifth. If we add those up, it looks like our common denominator is a 1/4 of a fifth is what, 1/20th. And so here we have 1/10 or 2/20ths. And 4/5 is the same as 16/20ths. So there's 16, 17, 18, 19/20ths. If we multiply the top and the bottom by 50, so 5 rather, 19/20ths times 5 over 5, we get 95 over 100, or 95%. And we could also see that this way, if we divide each of these in half both ways. We have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 pieces, and 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19 of those 20 pieces are shaded. 19/20ths or 95%. I'll leave number 2 for you to work on your own. The same with 3, but let's look at 4 and 5. So we could look at this as 1/2 of my whole plus 1/4. I apparently forgot how to write a fraction, so we have 1/2, 1/4, and 1/8. So we use our 1/8 as a common denominator. We get 4/8 plus 2/8 plus 1/8, 4, 5, 6, 7 eighths. And what do we need to multiply 8 by to get 100? 12.5. So we have 7/8 times 12.5 over 12.5. 8 times 12.5, just double check, is 100. 7 times 12.5 is 87.5 over 100, or 87.5%. Right, and so really there are two different ways. We can either write our fractions from the very beginning, we can find our common denominator right away, and so maybe we'll do that here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces, and one of those 8 are shaded, so we have 1/8. And we know from our previous one that 8 we need to multiply by 12.5. So we have 12.5%. And just to set up this one here, so it looks like we have 3, 4, 5 here, and it looks more or less to me like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more pieces there. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 out of our 10, and half of 1/10. And we can work from there, and I'll leave number 2 for you. So right, decimals are really just special fractions where we have a certain size piece. So here we had 95 of our hundredths. Here we have 87.5 of our hundredths. And I'm not even going to try to write it, but you could picture if I divided each of these 20ths into 5 more pieces. Right, you can see how that would then give us 100 total pieces, and 95 of them would be shaded. And this idea of breaking it into pieces is what we're going to use when it comes to solving problems involving percent. So here it says, we can make some percent problems easy to solve mentally by working with benchmark percentages. Use math drawings and percent tables to help you reason and record your thinking. So this says calculate 95% of 80,000 by calculating 1/10 of 80,000, and then calculating half of that result. Use this math drawing and the percent table to help you explain why your method makes sense and to record your thinking. Is there more than one way to find 95? Well, if 100%, our whole here represents 80%, the shaded portion represents 95. If you don't believe it, if we draw this line in, there are 20 pieces, and 19 of them are shaded, and 19 times 5 is 95. And remember, we had that on our previous page. So if 100% is 80,000, 10% is 8,000, because that's a tenth. And then to get from 10% to 5%, we can divide by 2. 4,000. And 95% is really just 100% minus 5%. So here we have 80,000 minus 4,000. We get 76,000. 76,000. Now it says, is there more than one way? Well, sure. I could also say I have 9 times 10% plus a 5%, right? Well, 9 times 10% is 9 times 8,000 plus 4,000. So 9 times 8,000 is 72,000 plus 4,000, 76,000. It's another way. We could also, we take our 5%, and well, we know 5% is 4,000. We can divide that by 5 and get 1%. So we have 4,000 divided by 5. We get 800. And so we have 95 times our 1%. 95 times 800. We get 76,000. And so I'll do a couple more examples like this, mainly one more. And then I'll give you two other ones that you could work on your own. So here it says calculate 15,000 of 6,500 by first calculating 1/10 or 10% of 6,500. Use the math drawing and a percent table to help you explain why your method makes sense and to record your thinking. Well, first let's write our 100% is 6,500. And so if we divide that by 10 to get 10%, we divide that by 10 and get 650. And then say, let's go ahead and divide that in half to get our 5%. 650 divided by 2. From our divisibility test, we know will give us something, 325. Now 15% is 10% plus 5%. So 650 plus 325 is 975. So 15% is 975. Do we have another way we can see that? Well, we have 1, 2, 3 of our fifths, or of our 5%. So we have 3 times 5%. 3 times 325 is also 975. All right, so there are a number of ways that we can get to our results, and that is often the case. Now, the two I'll leave with you to kind of work through on your own will be calculate a 7% tax on a $25 purchase by first finding 1%. Use a percent table to record that reasoning. Well, if you want to work on that, pause now. Otherwise, we divide by 100. So $25 divided by 100 is 25 cents. And then we multiply by 7. And we get $1.75. Another example, if you want to calculate 60% of 810 by first calculating a half or 50%, use the math drawing and a percent table to help you explain it. So we start our percent table, and again, if you want to work on this on your own, pause now. Otherwise, 100% is 810. Well, we can divide by 2 to find 50% or half. Well, that's 405. We're going to divide that by 5 to get 10%. And when we multiply or divide 405 by 5, we get 81. And 60% is 50% plus 10%, which is 405 plus 81, which is 486. You may have also done 6 times 10%, which is 6 times 81. And 6 times 81 also gives us 486. And so This is one nice way to connect our math drawings to our percent tables and use them for solving. I'm going to go ahead and give you one more pair of examples, and if you work through these and want to see the answer, let me know. But this has 2 word problems. Lenny received 6 boxes of paper, which is 30% of what he ordered. How many boxes did he order? And it says to draw a math drawing and a percent table to help you solve. And then Mrs. Jones paid $2.10 in tax on an item she purchased, and that was a 7% tax. What was the price of the item without the tax? And use a percent table. And so, one last thing that I want to talk about before I conclude today's video. If you want the answer to these, let me know. Shoot me an email. We have some equivalent sayings for percent. So equivalent percent. So for example, what are some other expressions for 4%? Well, 4% means 4 100ths, or 4 for every 100. Well, we can reduce that as 2 over 50, or 2 for every 50. Or we could say 1 for every 25. Or 8 for every what? Or a half for every blank. Well, if it's 4 for every 100, it's 8 for every 200. And if it's 1 for every 25, it's a half for every 12.5. You know, this is just the same as writing all of our equivalent fractions. Because we know that 4 100ths equals 2 50ths equals 1 25th, which is the same as 8 200ths, or a half, 12 1/2ths. That's a hard one to say. I just want you to know that while percentum gives us this per 100, we could talk about per 50s, per 25s, per 200s, and per 12.5s, right? These are all equivalent ways of interpreting our fractions. And that is the big idea behind percents. That percents are special fractions, just like our decimals were, and we will often work with math drawings and percent tables when solving percent problems. Have a great day, everyone.